Welcome to this episode of the Winter Moon Podcast. I'm David.
I'm Brian.
I'm Nathan.
And welcome to the show, everybody. And today we have a couple segments. We got List of the Week. We're going to go over Nathan's Invader League list, which is an Imperial list, a very interesting one, maybe not something that most of you would expect or are familiar with. And we're also going to talk about a couple of the secondary objectives. We started our series last week with Bring Them to Heel. Kind of got buried in our discussion of Lando and of the 2.6 rules changes, but it was in there. Bring Them to Heel was in there. And we're going to continue that series this week with Sweep and Clear and Marked Targets. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Nathan's list here. Brian, if you have it up, why don't we read it off?
Sure.
And we'll do an overlay on the video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening, you'll just have to bear with us for a moment as we read it off.
All right. So Nathan has, as his commanders, he's got Iden Versio. She's got Offensive Push. We've also got Director Krennic with Improvised Orders. He's got the not as good Vader, the Operative Vader with Force Push and Force Choke into the fray and tenacity. All the things that Operative Vader should have. He's got Stormtroopers with DLT 19s. That's the range 4, 2 red. And he's got 4 of those. And then he's got Naked Scout Troopers, Imperial Special Forces with obviously Hask and Del Mico. But he also has Offensive Push and Emergency Transponders on those. So they can get that, either remove a suppression or get that lovely aim when they activate if they don't have an order. And then he's also got E-webs, 3 E-webs with the overcharge generator. Overcharge, so the impact gun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a meta choice. I like it.
Yeah.
So it's 12 acts, 999 points. All right, Nathan, tell us about it.
So the idea for this list was kind of, we'd wrapped up Worlds. I guess for those who don't, I figure most people listening have probably heard of Invader League, but in case you haven't, it's a league that's run through TTS, so you get to play people from all over the world. And there's a round robin stage that runs for about 6 to 8 weeks in the spring, which we're just started now. And then those that are at the top of their round robin groups then move into a single elimination tournament kind of in the summer. So kind of after Worlds was done, everyone's playing their sweaty, hardcore medalists. I wanted to do something a little more unusual, and that's kind of Invader League round robin. A lot of times is a pretty good place to experiment because you're generally playing against like good competitive players, but people are sort of feeling out different types of things. And someone challenged me to make E-webs good because I put it out to some different friends. I said, okay, guys, what unit that everyone thinks is trash should I take and make good? And someone said E-webs. So that was the goal, to make a triple E-web list. I experimented with a few different things. I had Callus in there for a long time because new Callus seems really cool. Had a few different things. What I was finding was that I felt like the list lacked mobility. It doesn't have dewbacks, so it doesn't have a way to get to an objective really fast, and I was having trouble having it split. So what I ended up doing is, it's a lot of points, but I shuffled some things around and I put Iden and Inferno squad in there. And the idea with that is to have, you've got your main force with Krennic and the Storms and the E-webs, and the DLT or the Naked Scout is basically just there to give me a little bit better order control over Inferno squad, just so I can delay them longer if I want to. That's basically why the Naked Scouts are there, and because they're really awesome for 48 points, like 8 black dice with sharpshooters, really good for that price tag. And so yeah, I got I need Inferno there basically because I just wanted like a little infiltrating, flanking force that can go wherever my army is weakest. At the end of round 1, and someone that can put pressure, at a variety of ranges. And if Iden and Inferno ever do sort of get out of position, say maybe they're on a side that's a little bit too weak and then they blow it out and then they're kind of stuck not next to a bunch of stuff, they can actually still contribute from range. It's one of the great things about Iden now is that she comes with her big impact crit gun and she comes with the sniper. It's not what you want to be doing with a 121 point character, but if you've killed something and then that's all you do and you're holding down an objective, it doesn't feel too bad. So, and that was the idea. I got to try some things that I haven't really put together in a long while. I've only got one game in so far, and I'll do like an update at the end of the season or something to give my complete thoughts. Um, but so far, Iden still definitely feels she's better than she was. She still feels a little expensive for what she does. She does not hit very hard for 120 points. She is, I mean, reasonably tanky. She's 6 red saves, and she's courage 3, so that's cool. And definitely infiltrate is really cool. Infiltrate's a big deal. Is a lot stronger in the current edition of Legion. And Inferno is really good. Inferno still, I think, is totally worth their price tag right now. The thing with them is you have to have Iden with them to trigger their retinue. So like Iden's the one that doesn't feel super worth her cost, and like you have to bring her to bring Inferno. But Inferno's really good. So that was definitely my impression playing with them. The pair of Iden and Inferno were able to do what I wanted them to do. They were sort of able to come out at the end of the round, pick the side that needed the most help, and they were able to contribute a lot on that side. Um, the E-webs, I'm still struggling with a little bit. I was hoping they would kind of be this line that like zones out at range 4, and then if anybody gets too close, I play Krennic's 2 pip, and boom, there's like the standby bubble around the E-webs. One thing I found tough for them is actually the new area terrain rules. There's a lot of like with the new area terrain, something you can do is a lot of like move into area terrain, shoot, and then move back out. E-webs can't do that because they're cumbersome.
Yeah.
So it only works one way. You can shoot and then move back out, which I did do in my first game with them. I kind of had the E-webs there in the area terrain. They did some fire, and then when they started to get on the point of death, I had them shoot and retreat. So they're kind of behind the big area terrain LOS block. But I didn't have the option to then move them. Like I would have loved to have them started deployed behind the area terrain, and then like when the time has come, then they move in and then shoot. I would have loved to have them do that, but they couldn't. I had to start inside and they had to like take some shots I didn't want them to have to take. So anyway, that's my experience so far. Cumbersome. I mean, the range 4 is great. The range 4 is helpful. Cumbersome on the E-webs, definitely still kind of rough. They are cheap. Their attack pool is very good for 63 points.
So,
Yeah.
I've got a question. How do you deploy them? Because I played with E-webs a fair bit as well. And personally, I kind of found that if I spread my E-webs out, they get picked apart. And so I kind of like them together. How do you usually do it?
I also try to put them together.
Okay.
You want to make sure you can. I try to make sure I can see a fair amount of the board still. But yes, I agree with you. If you sort of spread them out, what's going to happen is your opponent is going to just focus on whichever the closest one to them is, and they're just going to blast that one to smithereens. And again, because they're cumbersome, the other two can't then like swing around and then shoot. Right? They're just stuck where they are. Or I mean, you can move them into position, but then they're not shooting. Right? And you kind of want them to shoot since they're 63 points. So yeah, I definitely tried to put them relatively close together. And it's like, okay, now if you're coming on to take one of the E-webs, you got to take on all the E-webs. And that's as they're close together, so they have similar sight lines. It's relatively easy to do because they have range 4. So like even if you're like a little bit closer to one than the other, if you're range 3, it's like, well, okay, I've got range 4, so If you're range 3 to the guy in the front, you're going to be range 4 from the guy in the back.
And they don't
So
block line of sight from each other, so stacking them
correct.
behind each other won't be a problem. So
Right, right. Yeah, stacking them behind or stacking them in a row, and they're from the other side. Yeah, you want to be a little bit careful about. You don't want to like block off area where your core is going to move.
yeah,
So you want to have a little bit of breathing room between the E-webs because you don't want to stop your stormtroopers from being able to position themselves to move onto the center objective. But yeah, yeah, yeah. If you stack them together, it helps. Again, really, the thing that was really killing me was the cumbersome with them. Um, but yeah, I think what you said is correct. It's definitely good to stick them. I think close together is what I'm getting right now. And again,
yeah,
that's the thing that Iden and Inferno kind of complement a little bit. Again, even though they're they're very expensive, if you have the E-webs clumped in one spot and then you move in your storms and your scouts and everything else, and you realize that you're too weak on one side, well, there you go. They can pop out wherever they want and sort of help that spot of the board.
So I noticed two major points in the discussion that we're having that I kind of want to draw out here, just as we're tactics focused, right? One is the tension that occurs between moving to the objective and shooting stuff, and having cumbersome like implies that this is a defensive unit. It's not going to be moving into attack position. It's not going to be like necessarily like moving to put pressure. There's only 5 rounds, one of which you spend walking under the board. So really, there's only like 4.5 ish. I guess prepared positions is sort of solves that. It's like weak infiltrate because you're like putting yourself on the board, and then you show your opponent where you are, and then your opponent can just respond based on you had to show your hand earlier. Um, and I guess the other tactical point that I was thinking of was you need that sort of like ability to flex, and it's not just a hammer and anvil style of list where you have like these units are dedicated to defense, and these units. Then I have a couple units that are dedicated to attack. I've got a unit that can do either one because they have infiltrate. They can, or if in substitute for infiltrate would be just like high mobility, like for example, like an airspeeder or a land speeder, for example, it can just go where it needs to go, in response to your opponent's like bluff or whatever they're doing with their deployment. So those are just two really excellent like general like tactics points to keep in mind when one is deploying. So um, you're just looking, you kind of look at the board and you kind of like try to suss out like where is my opponent's next unit likely to go, and it's especially important on objectives where you split. I don't know if you run like bunker assault, but bunker assault's a big one because sometimes there's terrain that impedes you from getting from one friendly bunker to the other, or vice versa, or getting to one side easier than the other. So it's just something to consider all the time whenever you're deploying, and something to incorporate into your list building as well. Like what pieces are the high mobility pieces that are going to save me from either an error in deployment or my opponent's infiltrate, because they're going to be able to do something. So there's kind of like a one-upmanship that goes on in the deployment and in the list building, just like in the strategy phase of list building.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and it's something like you said you want to think about while you're deploying units in round one, and you want to think about it in list building. You want to have some units that can flex. If your army all kind of has to be relatively close together, like if you got a bunch of core that's courage 1 and you only got one commander,
B1 battle
or
droids.
B1s, man, it's the blessing and the curse of droids is you got that great order control and you got a bunch of relatively cheap units, but you got to keep them close together or you start to lose the benefit.
Anything that needs compelled, for example.
hmm Right, right. Again, yeah, it's a problem the Empire can face if you only have one source of compel. Your core kind of all have to go. I mean, you can have like one core that's off in the corner, maybe, but it's like if you have two actual battlefields, like something like destroy enemy base, or a bunker assault. I mean, where there's like two actual battlefields, it's like your core kind of all have to be on one side, because you got to have them in that compel bubble.
And I'll say I ran a list without the fast response units, and I had a B1 chain, and I got absolutely wrecked because, oh no, I have like four B1s on this side, and my opponent has, I was playing against Gar, and they are able to just go wherever the heck they please because everybody has courage too,
Yep.
Hmm.
and Obi-Wan doesn't have to spend a lot of time. He doesn't have to sit on his butt. He can just recover with Master of the Force and move twice, and suddenly the Guardian bubble's in a completely different spot, and everyone's moving to that spot, and he's attacking with the rest of the army, and I only had like a couple of pieces to respond with, and I was like, well, if I can't move more things off this one bunker, I'm just going to get destroyed, and that's exactly what ended up happening. I just didn't have enough material left to either defend my own bunker or contest the opposing bunker to even the score. So that's definitely like one of those lessons that I've learned is having that mobility play, and like in future iterations of that same list, it was Dooku Asajj, and now it's like I'm much more willing to separate Asajj from Dooku. They don't necessarily need to be together to do well, and I also incorporated Aqua Droids because Aqua Droids have that infiltrate mechanic. So
Right.
yeah, and yeah, no, and on top of that, I even I'll talk. This is talking a little bit about my Invader list as a compliment to yours. Same theory, right? I dropped Asajj's 3-pip for do not underestimate our means on Kalani because the Aqua Droid mobility was more important than Asajj having Makashi mastery
Oh wow.
to me. I was
Yeah.
because I run Saber Throw Asajj, and if Asajj never touches melee, Makashi is a dead keyword. So there's no reason to run any of her. I looked at all 5 of the keywords that were possible on that card, and I was like, none of these actually matter anymore, except maybe bounty, and even then, bounty's like a super sometime thing. So the Aqua Droid movement and Aqua Droid link targeting array off of the 3-pip, in addition to having like near perfect control via standing orders on turn 1 with Kalani and Dooku together. Um, there was no need to run her 3-pip, I felt, and it was much better to have the reinforcements on the Aqua Droids to get the free move, and then you can aim shoot again. And there's just all kinds of good reasons not to take her 3-pip in this list. So that's coming back to sort of the point we're trying to make is that one has to not only do you have to be willing to look at everything, even if it's outside of the normal, because everybody's like, well, of course you would take her 3-pip. Why wouldn't you take her 3-pip? Asajj does less value without a 3-pip, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, not necessarily. And you have to be willing to experiment with strange combinations in order to discover things about the game that are new. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go on. So I do have a couple of questions, Nathan. So how often do you get your e-webs on POIs? Do you use them as turrets, like in the back, or do you move them up and get them on POIs as like the rest of your army?
So mostly back points.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly back points. Now I have not actually played them yet on something like Close the Pocket, for example. Um, where it's kind of like, eh,
Okay.
yeah, where it's like you don't really have one that's like right in your zone and Close the Pocket. You sort of have a side that ends up being your strong side, and so that's like your point. Um, and so I haven't actually like played out that scenario yet. Um, but see, I think even in that scenario, you probably prepared positions them kind of near the front, near your thing, and then if anybody pokes their head out, you just blow the crap out of them with all 3 of the U-webs, and then you sort of move up onto your strong side and you shoot, move, get facing that way, and then probably still just pressure the middle from a distance. It's
Exactly.
just yeah, they're quite slow, and again, the cumbersome. I mean, obviously, you can shoot move, right? That's in some situations that's totally fine, just as good as moving than shooting, but sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes in order to advance, you need to be able to move and then shoot something to get like the better angle or whatever, and they can't do that, and so a lot of times it's just better to have them in the back. And the thing is, like, you do want them to shoot, but they're 63 points apiece. So if you have a round or two where you're also going to lose some of them, or you're not going to keep all 3 of them alive. And so if you have one or two that are in your back point, and maybe in the last round they don't get a shot or something, it's not a huge loss. It's not like not shooting with a tank or something, right?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. Especially so the most I play close at pocket a lot. I'm not sure why I play it so much. I think everyone's just most comfortable with it um, because of the old intercept. Uh, they
Yeah.
just like those 3 points. I'm not really sure. Um, I always have a force user, so I really don't know why people pick that a lot. Anyways, but the so what I would do is I would put the three E-webs in between the middle and my back and my strong point where I want to put the majority of my army, right? And I wasn't. I think that don't be afraid to double move your E-webs. If you don't got like a really great shot, don't be afraid to double move them if you feel like they can stay safe and get in position to where they can actually just rain down the rest of the game. Like don't be afraid to do that. I would suggest because uh, they if you can double move them and then just aim shoot the rest of the game, then that's a win. So
For sure. For sure. Yeah, they like you usually tap the generator for whatever their opening salvo is, and then unless you're specifically shooting into armor, typically an aim shoot is better than recovering the thingy and then shooting. At least in my case, when I have the overcharge, you could maybe make an argument to recover the barrage generator just to get that suppressive back. Um,
I do
like-
I do have one question. I have found I'm not sure how. I mean, you're the math guy, so you probably know. But I have found that a recover shoot with the barrage with the two extra white dice with the potential to get a surge or a crit is generally better than the impact.
Um, so if you're shooting into high amounts of armor, so like let's just so like a tank, like armor 5, the impact is better than
Okay.
the extra dice.
Okay.
Now there if you're shooting into a low armor count, like armor 1, then yeah, you just want to get more hits. Like the impact doesn't really matter that much. And two white dice surging to crit are slightly better than one black surging to crit. And suppressive is also cool. But yeah, if you are worried specifically about armor, the impact is going to be better than
Okay.
than the extra die.
So this is a purely meta call. It's like if I'm going to face armor 5, or if I think there's high armor in my vicinity, eat buses, etc., then I take the impact generator. And if I think there's less of that, then I take the barrage.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also about like what's in the rest of your list too. Like I have I have a lot of chip impact. So I have 4 DLTs. I have the 3 E-webs, which by the way, the E-webs natively have impact 1, which is nice, but I love having that impact 2. It means like if I'm shooting into aquas, for example, that means a lot of the time I'm getting 2 hits and 2 crits. And so that's cash money, right? If you
Yeah.
hold that, because that's like now again. So if you're talking about if you wanted to match that with impact 1, you need 1 hit and 3 crits, which you're
Yeah,
not
that's a
going
good
to
point.
hit that often with 7 dice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, so I like it, and it also just helps the consistency. The surging to crit, there's a certain amount of dice where on average rolling surge to crit and rolling extra dice is going to be as many as having extra impact, but it's not consistent. It's going to be feast or famine. Sometimes you're going to get 1 crit, sometimes you're going to get 3 crits, sometimes you're going to get 0 crits, and that impact just kind of being reliably there. Like you're almost always getting 2 hits in the pool. You've got a red die, you got 2 black, and 3 black, 2 whites. Like there's almost always going to be sort of plain old regular hits in there. It stinks if they have dodges, as aquas sometimes do. That's when it feels a little bad. They got like tons of dodges from like Kalani's command cards or something. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for armor, and again, armor's real good right now. I think I think the impact is hard to say no to. And then you just complement that with like the 4 DLT storms that all have impact 1. Now you've got impact 10, and then you
Yeah.
throw in Iden Inferno that have marksman, and Iden has impact and critical 1 on her gun. Like she can pretty consistently throw like 3 crits into armor with like marksman and stuff. So yeah, it's like I feel really comfortable in the armor with this list, which is in the current game, I feel like you kind of have to be. Like you kind of have to be comfortable facing armor, otherwise there are lists that could just steamroll you, like Tempests, right? Something like Tempest can just steamroll you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I love the range 4. You have a ton of it. I love that because I love Vader with the Vader as your melee threat with the support of the range 4. I think finding really effective short range units and combining that with really good long range units it's to me it has allowed me it has allowed the game to feel a little bit more manageable no matter what the matchup is. And so I really like that I like that combo.
it's nice. You know who I'm a huge fan of, and I was a fan of it as soon as the Legion Edition 260 released, and I'm still a fan of it now in the current edition. Is DLT Storms. I still love those things for 62 points. It's like 4 white, 2 red search to hit, impact, and it's all at range 3, but you've also got the range 4 option. So like in my first game of the season, which is what I played so far, I was playing against Dooku, Aqua, Asajj actually. So it's something kind of similar to David's list. And I had 2 times where some DLT Storms just found a range 4 shot into Dooku when he didn't have any backup, and it was just 2 reds through no cover or after cover or whatever, and then got a wound on him. It happened twice, and it ended up being a very big deal actually.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like, yeah, DLT storms are they're really I mean, you kind of have to have compel on them because if they lose their actions, they start to suck. But if you got that compel on there, they're a pretty good package for 62 points.
So this is slightly tangential, but I wanted to talk about a lot of my conversations lately when it comes to the small dice pools are all about like if my opponent's cover whiffs. Like there's so much in so much of the game now, especially with the small dice pools, is like if my opponent's cover whiffs. And so like I'm just I like that you mentioned that the 2 reds are good, but at the same time, it's like, well, if Dooku had actually been played properly, like, I mean, I hate to use the word properly, but if Dooku had been guarded like by a unit or was in cover, like maybe it wouldn't have been as effective as it seemed.
Yeah, so well, let me give my opponent some credit here. I think it wasn't that his plan was bad. I foiled it a little bit. He had the aqua shield around Dooku, but I tack striked it,
Ah,
and
yeah,
so the aquas fell under the might of tack
yeah,
strike.
it opened a hole in
Um,
the wall.
yeah, yeah. So that's what exposed Dooku. So just to give my opponent some credit there. It's not like he was like sticking Dooku out in the open or anything like
This
that.
is this is yet another reason why I think a medic B1 is staple to Dooku because they can just walk right behind him and give him
Yeah, it's
backup and
really helpful.
give him
Yeah,
backup. Yeah, super
very
helpful.
yeah, backup and a heal. Yeah,
Hmm.
very good.
Now with the tax strike, it's most of your damage from tax strike is with Iden and Inferno Squad, right?
All of it.
All of it.
I don't even order the naked scout. I order Vader
Yeah, of
because
course.
you got to
Yeah.
have orders on Vader.
Yep.
So yeah, the naked scout literally I just took so that in case I want to infiltrate Vader turn 1 and save tax strike for turn 2, you still really want to be able to control when Inferno Squad comes out in particular. Iden, again, her offense is not that good outside of tax strike. So if she doesn't find like a super optimal shot round 1, it's not the end of the world. You really want Inferno to find a meaningful shot round 1, and it stinks not having orders on them if you want to infiltrate Vader. So that's why the naked scout's in there, because I have the naked scout and I have improv. So hopefully you got to cross your fingers a little bit, but you hope that in a bag with 11 tokens, you don't pull both special forces like right away. You kind of hope that there's some delay, and then that second time you pull the special forces token, you improvised orders. So the scouts are there basically just to give me a little bit more activation padding around Inferno Squad, but they also happen to be really solid for 48 points. So anyway, that's just a long way of saying they don't do anything on tax strike besides what they normally do, which is just run around and be really awesome.
If only they
Yes,
cost 40 points and had charge,
Yeah.
you know,
like fleets.
like fleets. Yeah,
Yeah,
if only.
yeah, they shoot better than fleets though.
That's true. That's
They
true.
shoot I mean 8 black over 8 surging white. with sharpshooter, it's like there's a difference
They're also not known for running into battle and getting killed gloriously for the rebellion.
there. Yes. And the scout 3 is really nice. It's like if your opponent tries to get cheeky on you at all with forward deploying, it's like with a speed 3 move and then a speed 2 move, your scouts can find your opponent if they're forward deploying, even if they think that's like, oh, I'm safe behind some cover or whatever. It's like a speed 3 and a speed 2 move, I can find you.
No, my first Invader League opponent caught me with that. We were playing Recover the Research, and I got a bit aggressive with my Aquas, and he pulled his scouts from the side of the board, Scout 3 into range 2, and I was like, wow, that's a cool shot I just gave up. But
Mhm.
yeah, that caught me.
And it's like 8 blacks, right? In Aquas, you're probably
Yeah,
forcing 2 saves
I
most
ate
of
a
the
couple
time.
wounds, yeah, from that because
Yeah.
of the armor 2 was not sufficient to block all 4 hits.
Yep.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
Asajj cleaned them up with an. She found them out of cover with a
Mhm.
saber throw, so they died.
Ooh, yeah,
Well,
that's death. They need that low profile to have even a hope of
Yeah,
survival. So, yeah. No, it's cool. Definitely things that like about the list, like if I were to like summarize what stood out to me so far is like you want to have the ability to I would say most of this you want to have like 200 to 300 points worth of stuff that can go off somewhere on its own that does not need any support from any other units and can provide like a reasonable threat against your opponent. You want that in every list. So like in this list, that's Iden and Inferno for me. So that's like something that you really need. I love DLT Storms. I love Krennic. I love Naked Scouts. Love Vader. Obviously, that's not news. But and I really love Inferno. Like I said, Iden, she does not really feel like she hits very hard for her cost. But Inferno's really good. They pretty consistently throw like 4 Pierce 1, and that's if you're not getting in them any extra aims from Tack Strike or I have offensive push and emergency transponders on them. So it's like if they're getting extra aims from that, you can pretty consistently get like 5 Pierce 1. It's like that's really good at
you
range
ever
3.
you ever
Infiltrate.
find you miss Courage 3 on Iden, running her off on a flank?
Oh, you mean like my troops aren't
Like
getting enough
if you ever compel or you fight a suppressive list and you want to compel on top, you ever like because I mean if you take one suppressive shot and you compel and you take another suppressive shot, you're already at 4 panic or already at 4 suppression. So
Yeah.
there's a panic risk already.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes if you really really have her far away, like totally on the other side of the board, it's like yeah, you're losing some of that value from
Yeah.
her courage
I guess it's a
because
matter of just like
Inferno's
it's more important to do this flanking maneuver.
yeah, it's more important to be able to flank. But a lot of times too, it's kind of like you have like your E-webs in the back, your Storms and Krennic are pushing on the middle, and then Iden and Inferno are maybe like on the other side. And so as your Storms get into the middle, they're getting into Iden's courage bubble.
Oh, okay, so they kind of meet up in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens too.
okay, I
Sweet.
like that.
So yeah, there's a very it definitely there are times when like you're out of Iden's range and you're like, man, I wish I could have Iden's everywhere only for her courage bubble. But
Right.
yeah.
We need more highly courageous Imperial commanders that are they're few and far between, other than
Yeah,
Vader.
Yes, and I'm an Op Vader truther, so
Yeah. So you need
couldn't fit
Iden.
Commander Vader in this list anyway. I need my boy
yeah.
Krennic. He's too good not to take.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you're not taking Annihilation Looms because that hampers Op Vader pretty bad, I think.
Yeah, I always take Master of Evil over Annihilation Looms anyway. It's like obviously Annihilation Looms, you can do wild stuff with it, but like Master of Evil, I can do it's a more limited space, but I can do it on just my opponent, and it's 3 suppression instead of 2. It's like that's pretty
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah, it's good.
What's the range on Master? Is it range 2?
It's
Range
range
two,
2,
yeah,
which
Range
is
2?
pretty
Yeah.
forgiving. I mean, you usually want Vader at range 2 of most of your opponent's stuff.
Okay.
That's like, especially like, man, on something like Close the Pocket, Master of Evil's like, you don't get this POI this turn. Right, it's like this POI is mine.
At the risk of being annoying, I'll just brag and say I had a turn with Dooku versus Master Eagle, where Dooku force push lightning 2 pip move or 2 or 3 pips 2 speed move to shift the Master Evil bubble all the way out. So
That's funny.
it was just like, yeah, you just ejecting Vader across the board, like halfway across the board, and just like, yeah, you're not gonna do that to my B1s. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Dooku's very good at making other Force users sad.
Oh yeah, he's
That
great.
can definitely include Vader.
He's such a good piece. I hope they never nerf him. I don't know if he.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
He was under the curve for so
he
long.
was. He
He's
really
he's over
was.
the curve right now, but he deserves his time in the sun.
Yeah,
He
he doesn't.
deserves to have it.
His biggest limitation, I think, is that he doesn't have 6 command cards or any recyclable command cards, and he's still a 225 point unit.
He doesn't need it though.
He doesn't need it. Yeah, he was if he had any sort of like relentless natively, he'd be insane. Like he'd be double move lightning and all kinds of like Nathan's just shaking his
Yeah,
head like don't
that's
talk this heresy. You know?
we don't need it. I said don't nerf him. We don't need to buff him though.
No. He
Right?
doesn't need a buff.
Please no.
He's right about where he should be, and everyone else should use him as. I
Yes.
think he's a good yardstick, frankly.
Yeah, he's right at that point where he's incredibly powerful and also incredibly expensive.
Yeah,
But he feels worth his price tag. Like
yeah.
that's where we want him.
He's just under
That's
a quarter of your list.
that's where we want all these characters.
Yeah,
Right? That's where we want Dooku and Anakin and Luke and Vader. It's
yeah.
like these guys,
There are equivalents of like a giant dragon in some other war game systems.
right?
You know, that's
But
our
Dooku
equivalent.
feels like a giant
Oh
dragon.
yeah, he does. He's only
Yeah.
one model, but he really does. Like his impact on the board is tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall
Should
we
we
move
move
on
on?
to
We started
secondaries?
with the E-web list, and here we are chatting about Dooku.
It's good.
Yeah.
No, it's a good conversation. We talked quite a bit about tactics and things, and
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll
We
move
may
on
have to
to.
we may have to let Mark Targets wait for the next time, but
Yeah,
It's fine.
probably. Yeah.
So we're going to discuss sweep and clear. That's our secondary topic. Basically, sweep and clear says the following. Let me go ahead and say this about it. Once per round per player, when an enemy unit is defeated by an attack made by a friendly unit, that friendly unit's controlling player may mark one of their unmarked spaces below. A player may only mark a space corresponding with the territory the attacking unit leader is at. So there's a table with any territory, friendly territory, contested territory, all worth 1 VP, and enemy territory, all worth 2 VPs. So the basic gist, the way I understand this, is that what matters is the location of the attacking unit leader. So you're trying to defeat an enemy unit, and depending on the position of your unit leader, that determines how many points you'll score, and you only have one opportunity to score each of these different categories per game, and only once per round as well. So you cannot claim 2 in one round, which could be important because you might have the opportunity to kill 2 units in one turn, which is generally a good thing, but you might need to wait to farm the victory point off of that the following turn. But this only occurs if you're really winning by a good margin anyway. You'll probably take the opportunity to kill the units you can kill as soon as that's available to you. So, what do we think about strategies for this particular secondary?
I really like getting, if possible, trying to get that turn one VP from getting a kill of a unit while I'm in my deployment. I think range four guns are really good for that. You got your ATRT lasers, which are really popular. They can plink something down. You got your like Nathan's list. You got your DLT storms. You've got your Mando rockets from Shadow Collective. You got a lot of good range four options out there to take advantage of a misplay or a mistake from your opponent where they've placed certain units. You can try to get that VP early.
Yeah, I'll point out that this is one where there's 4 opportunities for VPs, and you can only score 1 per round. So, assuming the game goes all 5 rounds, which is not always a given, but let's assume that it goes all 5 rounds, you don't have to score 1 round 1. but it's good to score one round one because you don't want to have to be feeling like you're potentially behind. If you wait to score one round two, you don't have like any, you can't cut yourself any slack now. You have to be scoring one of these every round, or you're potentially giving your opponent an avenue to score more points from the secondary than you. And if you're slaughtering them on the primary, maybe you can get away with that. If it's something like recover the research that tends to tie, that could be what ends the game for you.
Yep.
So, if possible, getting one round one, just like Brian said, is great. And I recommend really making that a priority, is finishing off a unit round one. If you can't, you better make sure you get one round two, or you could be setting yourself up for a tough time.
Yeah, I would say that the thing that gets me on this objective most frequently is scoring friendly territory as soon as possible. Um, I have lost games because my opponent got that, and I didn't have the opportunity anymore to get it, and I'm just behind a VP, and um, I'll end up losing by one victory point because my opponent just does that to me, and I can't resist or can't find a way to fight back. Um, so I think just like being careful about where your opponent's units are located at any given moment. And I can't remember which unit did it. I think it was a super tac with the range 3 gun standing in friendly territory. And of course, super tac pistols have lethal, so it was one of those like I'm gonna use my lethal gun to finish off your clone, and I'm gonna pick up the VP on sweeping clear from friendly, and that really stung. And so I just think that being aware of where your opponent's unit leaders are that can attack you is a significant something of significance on this objective. And especially like Brian mentioned, like those long range weapons, you have to be very respectful when you're playing sweeping clear, because again, that friendly territory VP can swing it, and like Nathan said, if you don't have a clawback mechanic of any other type, like if you can't claw your way back in the primary, so one good example of this would be recover the research and surface scan. That's another secondary we can talk about. But those two, there's almost no clawback. There's almost nothing there that you can do once you fall behind. Sweeping clear,
Uh,
though, at least I think.
Surface scan there
Surface Scan
is.
has one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What am I thinking? Recon is one of those.
Recon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
recon,
There's
it
less
can
of
be
one
tough
with recon.
yeah,
because your opponents can win a POI just by contesting it. So it can be somewhat tougher to stop them,
right,
because you can't just flood a POI and stop them. They can just have one droidica on it.
right,
That can be all it takes to score.
right. I guess my meandering point here is that you need to be very careful about where your opponent's units are located,
Yeah.
and especially which ones can attack you. And if they have a friendly territory unit, they can still attack you. You have to be respectful of that.
hmm
Yep.
What one thing I think about this when I'm in the list building stage is when I think about, do I or do I not want this? Is, do I have a plan to score all of these spaces? Now, the contested territory, both players are going to get that one every time.
Every
There's one
time.
that's in any territory. Okay, hopefully you can kill a unit over the course of the game. Congratulations. If you can kill one unit, you can score that space, right? And you're in contested territory all the time. But that friendly and that enemy territory, not every list is good at both of those things,
Yep.
right? You got to have some ranged capability to get that friendly. You don't have to score the friendly round one. That's when we're like in my list, for example, I've got those E-webs. They like to hang out in friendly territory, and they're shooting at range for all games, so they'll always be able to pressure the middle. So, like, I've got this in my list because even if I don't score it round one, which I'd like to, but even if I don't, I got those E-webs. And so, if, round three, round four, those E-webs that are hanging out at my back point happen to pick something off, cool, I can check that box off. Um,
Yeah.
but then I've also got Vader, who loves to run straight down the enemy's throat and kill stuff in their house, in their backyard. So you want to make sure your list can do both of those pretty reliably, because those are the ones that are hard to get.
So So there's some interesting things here. So I'm actually not a fan of relying on like a Vader or a Op Luke or a Dooku to get that enemy territory kill, because most of the time the POIs aren't in enemy territory, and you want those important pieces on the POIs personally. And so that's why I really like other things like land speeders, I like ISPs, I like air speeders, I like um, uh, Staps actually surprisingly are quite good. And so those things can fly around, get a good flank. Droidicas can get a really good flank, and ARC troopers obviously can run and get a good flank and get those enemy territory kills. Whereas I want my focus piece controlling a POI, and there are certain scenarios where you can do that and be in their enemy deployment and still score the POI and control that. But there's also some that you can't do that. Like on Close the Pocket, you can't.
Sure.
And Vader needs to be in the middle spot. Like he can't go into your enemy territory. And so
Sure.
there's yeah, you have to plan for it. You have to plan for it and make sure you have units that are going to be able to do that, and you have scenarios that are going to allow you to do that as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Um, yeah, you want to think about, a lot of times that goes into like what primary are you playing. So
Right.
like when you're doing the veto, you make up a good point. So like if your plan for scoring that is some sort of aggressive melee piece, something like a force user and close the pocket is on, you don't want to play this secondary in that situation, because you got to think about where's your piece going to be. Now on some of the other objectives, even something like shifting,
That's
it's
fine.
a viable game plan to have Vader gun it for your opponent's back points. Like,
Yes.
and you can sort of leave the middle as contested, and Vader's going to be like, I'm going to melee you here, I'm going to force push him off there. Right? He can make plays for the back points, and so then that works.
Yep.
Which I'd sort of, to segue, another thing that's really good for the secondary, specifically in a bit of a gaming way, is force push.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've got Vader or Dooku or Luke or whoever, and you want to you really want to score the enemy territory or the wherever, right? There's some territory you want to score that you don't have yet. Force push your opponent's units, cohere them out, so at least one dude is in the territory you want to be in, and then charge into that spot with your force user. So this is one where you can use force push to put your opponent's units where you want them to be, so you can move your unit leader into that spot and then charge them. So but yeah, you ultimately, you're correct. You want to be very careful about making sure that with the primary that you're playing, you're not setting yourself up where you're going to have to give up a key spot of the battle in order to go do that secondary. That's not a choice you want to have to make. You want to be able to do two things at the same time.
Right, and it's
But
also
it also is a choice that can very easily be made. I mean, you can make that choice and be like, okay, like um, it's almost guaranteed that I'm going to be able to get this double VP in your deployment zone, and I'm sacrificing one VP, and I'm right now we're tied up, or right now I'm down by one, and I'm up on kill points, and so those are important decisions. Be like, yeah, okay, sure, you can have this POI. I'm going to go get this kill, and we're going to get two VPs instead of one, and that'll put me right back in it. Those kinds of things, those kind of decisions are important.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because I was thinking about something that thinking about bringing that up next, right? Yeah, is knowing when this is a situation, because there's that box that lets you score two VPs in one round. This is a situation where for a round you may want to consider abandoning the primary for the secondary, and so keeping track of that. Again, close the pocket's kind of a bad example because the middle is worth two VPs,
Yeah,
but it is a situation where maybe if you're losing on the middle and you sort of anticipate that you're not going to be able to claw your way back on that middle anyway, maybe you do that instead. Maybe you're like, my opponent has too much stuff there this turn. Vader's in a position where he can run into the corner of my opponent's deployment and score those extra two VPs. Maybe that's going to be worth that over fruitlessly, sending him at the middle if you're not going to get it that turn,
yeah,
that round rather.
yeah. So being
absolutely.
aware of the VP math, being aware of the um, sort of the condition of the army, of
Hmm.
both armies, really. Um, yeah, I was gonna mention this as force push as well. Like, um, there are a few I think that you can score VP and get enemy. I think. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. I think intercept signal you can do this, where you can intel an enemy POI and score enemy territory. That's something that you can do.
Yeah, that's like the dream combo. You
Right, that's
have,
the dream scenario. Yeah,
yeah, you have a token on, I can't remember if they're called Intel
intel
tokens
token. Yeah,
or recon tokens. Yeah, Intel tokens. You put that on your aggressive piece, and you run into your opponent's back POI and kill something. And that's like the dream
yeah.
scenario.
I've had an intel token on Dooku before, just for that exact purpose, was to like contest the back POI and just be like, anything comes near this thing, I'm gonna chop it up or choke it or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it's that exact kind of thing.
Brian, I'm glad you brought up speeders, because that's the kind of thing that is really good at this that people don't always think about. Basically, anything like basically range is really good on this objective, to be able to shoot some, because you can't control where your opponent's units are, right? And it's all about where you are. But so if you are able to reach lots of different places, you can put your unit wherever you need it to be, and then you can still shoot something that's out in the middle, right, and still score, whether it's friendly or whether it's, let's say, like, not to keep talking about my list, but it's just what I'm thinking about. Like, let's say it is close to the pocket and I need Vader to sit on the middle. Inferno they can kind of run up the side of the board, and then in round 4 or round 5, they can be in my opponent's zone and then pop out and shoot something from my opponent's zone, right? Because that infiltrate lets them get up the board pretty quickly in the early rounds. So yeah, having something like that, or like you said, I mean, Staps. If people like Barks with heavies, like, Barks would be great swinging around. Certainly Fluttercrafts. That's another one that comes to mind. You just book
Watercraft's
it in
great.
your opponent's zone, and then you shoot the butt gun out the back and toast something. Yeah, Fluttercrafts would be like awesome at this.
Bad Batch, super strong.
Ooh, yeah, Bad
Just
Batch.
yeah, because they can just fly into your opponent's zone and then just nuke something, right?
Hmm.
Yep.
Because again, it matters where your unit leader is. So the thing that you're shooting does not have to be in the enemy zone, right? The thing that you're shooting can be way out wherever, but as long as you're in the zone and you pick up the kill, there's the VPs.
Right.
Yep.
Geonosian warriors.
Geonosians are fantastic. Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
fast.
Yep.
Yep.
Triple move one turn and then turn around the next turn and blast something.
Yep.
Inconsistent pool, but still it's got the mobility requirement to make it work.
Yep. And it's got a lot of volume. It
Yeah.
is inconsistent dice, but there's a lot of those dice.
Yeah, so you're hoping to like pop off with like multiple crits, basically,
Yeah.
because you're rolling like if you have a full squad, you're rolling 18 dice, right? So that's like 2 point something crits on average.
And you just got so many hits too. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're gonna do something to somebody.
Hmm. I think it's almost 7 hits on average. I think that
Yeah,
pool.
it's
Point seven
devastating.
five.
I would pay 96 for that privilege. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
do
you gotta
think
have
I do
7 hits
think
heavy.
Empire probably likes this scenario worse or less than all the other factions, just in terms of mobility pieces. Obviously, Vader can get in there, but Vader also has to have the right primary, like we mentioned, right?
sure. Dewbacks are good at this. You can just sort of have them gun it, and if you have a dewback that's not physically on a POI, that's totally fine. And the dewbacks can get there, and they also, again, if you're running them with a gun, well, you should always run them with a gun, whether it's the RTC or the flamer. Again, you can have that dewback that's just just a tiny bit, because again, the language is, I believe the new card says within, and remember, within now means if any part of
Yeah.
you is within.
Yeah.
So you can have that base of your dewback just a millimeter inside your opponent's zone, and then you just shoot the flamethrower out the back and you catch somebody. I mean, yeah, you
Exactly.
can you can kill people. So I think Empire's
Yeah, Deuce,
I'd say I feel like pretty much all the factions have it's not every list in every faction is going to be good at this. But I'd say every faction has some configuration of units that I think will do quite well.
This is a great secondary for Gideon Dark Troopers because you can play the 2-pip and sling a Dark
Ooh,
Trooper into your opponent's enemy
Ooh.
territory.
I hadn't even considered that, Dave. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
I
You're
was
right.
actually thinking about Remnant today, and I was like, man, like Remnant bikes and Dark Troopers with Gideon. That's probably gonna do it, but
Oh
I
I
don't
could
yeah.
know.
be good at this.
Is the rest of the list good? Like, who knows, right?
Free aim tokens on a bunch of stuff that
Yeah,
just wants
free aims is
aims.
good usually. Like,
I
short troopers
mean,
actually look well. Never mind, it's short troopers.
I'll say if the stormtroopers have a free aim every round, so they're
Yeah,
just living at range 4, that's not. I haven't tried it,
yeah,
but that might be okay. I mean,
that might be
certainly
okay.
they would be good at this objective, certainly.
Oh yeah,
Because I
they'll
mean, you
they'll
got so
crush.
much potential to shoot from to shoot from your own zone,
Yeah.
and then you got the bikes, and then you just mentioned the nasty strat with the dark troopers
Mm-hmm.
teleporting out back. Between them and the bikes, yeah, you should have opportunities to score from your opponent's zone
Yeah, because
too.
Remnant probably runs double bike. Even still,
Yeah, yeah, it's like why
bikes are
wouldn't you?
just really good in Remnant with free tokens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good.
I can't remember where it was. I was having a conversation with somebody on Discord, and they shared a list, an Empire list, where it was like 6 shores and 6 mortars,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just all naked, and I was like, "Whoa! Now you can watch your shores roll 3 blanks and a surge 6 times."
Yo, that's the list I played in my Invader League match. I played Commander Vader, Callus, 6 shorts, 6 mortars, and 3 scouts. And I
Oh,
was
is
lucky to
that
live because I was like, okay, I'm gonna walk my E5S's on the board and start plinking these mortars and see what I can kill.
Yeah,
It's just like,
is that
okay.
17 activations?
Yes, it was 17 to my 11, so I had 5 pass tokens.
5 past.
And I had to burn through every single one. I was like,
So
okay,
ex-
Yeah,
I
yeah.
so
pass.
excessive.
B1 walks on the board, I pass. B1 walks on the board, shoots range 4, I pass. you know,
Jeez.
stuff like that. I
That
had to
is
it was very delicate. I had to work my way through that, and then my aquas come out finally, and try to delete a shore trooper or something like
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
It's a matter of like having to pick stuff up off the board. We should do an episode on MSU, multiple small unit lists, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
becoming a thing. The
That's
last like
bad.
3 games I've played against 14 plus acts, because it's catching on. Like
There's power to it.
15 act double airspeeder is a thing now. Um,
Mm.
this high act Vader stuff.
Airspeeders are good at this.
Airspeeders are good at this objective. Yeah, they're
Um,
excellent. They're excellent in general. I think if you play an objective that is spread out enough so that your opponent can't concentrate their forces in any one part of the board, that's when the airspeeder, land speeder, all repulsor units basically thrive.
Yeah.
yeah, because you can fly them around. You can just pick on a side and try to do
Yep.
it to where I'm going to hit the side that my opponent's weak on, but I'm going to make sure I'm so far back that the rest of my opponent's stuff can't threaten me.
Yeah, I'll just
And
mow
then you
down an
just
isolated
kind of
unit.
move in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get too far down the rabbit hole, though,
Yeah.
those are good points. One thing with this secondary that's important to remember is you can only score this once per round.
Hmm.
So you want to be careful not to accidentally deny yourself an opportunity that you've set up. So here's what I mean. Let's say you've got something in the middle of the board that's on, let's say your opponent's got like some core unit that's on like 1 or 2 models left, and you have some range 3, range 4 unit that's back in your home zone. It's an ATRT, it's an ion spider, it's whatever your thing is, an E-web, right? Whatever your thing is that's back there, ARF troopers that's ready to shoot this thing and finish it off and score that friendly territory. And you're not pulling it from the bag yet. And then somewhere else on the other side, some other side of the board, you pick up some other unit and then you kill something and then you score your any territory box. What you've just done is now again, it is optional, so you don't have to score that box. But here's why I bring this up: if you take that point and now you manage to kill that thing this turn, you can't score it because you can only score one thing per round. So if you all that is to all that I'm trying to say is maybe just a concise way. If you're trying to set up a kill for one of those difficult to grab boxes, meaning killing from friendly or killing in enemy territory, and you're trying to set that up, be careful about claiming one of the easier ones early in the round. Because you might not get that opportunity back. Now, again, you got to be careful here. You got to be careful because if you pass up an opportunity to check a box because you're like, oh, I'm going to get friendly later in the round, and then you don't do it, now you just don't check a box at all that turn, and that's the really bad scenario. But so these are decisions that you want to be thinking about, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Don't go on autopilot. Be conscious when you kill a unit. If you haven't checked a box yet, think carefully. Think, okay, am I definitely gonna be killing more things this round? If you are, you have options. If you aren't, probably take it. If there's a box that you have to check to win this game and you think now is going to be your best chance to do it, then you have to take the gamble. Like, let's say it's round 4 and your opponent has checked all their boxes and you know you have to check friendly or you have to check enemy territory and you haven't done it yet. You probably need to wait to make sure you get that one, if that makes sense. So anyway, all this to say, just be thinking about those decisions. Don't go on autopilot.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than going on autopilot and hitting round 5 and being like, "Oh, I can't win."
Yes.
You sort of sleep your way to the loss.
Yeah.
That's what you want to avoid, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. If you go through the round, you kill, you get to check the any territory box, and then you kill that thing with your ARF troopers that was sitting in the middle of the board, and then you hit round 5, and you need to hit friendly territory to be on parity with your opponent, and you go, wait, I don't have anything I can kill with my ARF troopers anymore. It's like you don't want to put yourself in that position. So you want to be thinking about your game plan. First, you need to think, what do I need to do this? Like, is this part of my path to winning? Is that I have to check these boxes? And if it is, like, make sure you have a plan to check all those off and that you're not accidentally impeding yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, do we have any final thoughts on Sweep and Clear? All right. Well, gents, it's been a great episode, a great and good episode. And thank you so much for listening to the show. And of course, check us out, wintermoonwargaming.substack.com. Coffee, ko-fi.com/wintermoonwargaming, all one word. We're on Facebook at Wintermoon Wargaming. We're on Instagram, wintermoon_wargaming. And what am I forgetting? YouTube, of course, which you're probably watching us on YouTube. If you're listening through the Substack, youtube.com/@wintermoonwargaming. And our next event that we're going to be covering is Ironweld in July in Boston. We'll be covering that. I'm hopefully traveling to Indianapolis to see Ryan at the Indy Open in June.
Yes.
I gotta book my flight still, but it's coming up. And we have any other things we want to bring to the audience's attention before we close?
Go watch Andor.
Go watch Andor. Yeah, it's fantastic. Invader League is going on still. We'll have more miniature battle reports as we progress through our games. I'm playing Dooku, Asajj, Aquas, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, we talked about Nathan's E-webs and things like that. And then, Brian, are you doing Invader?
Yeah. I played my first game.
What are you rocking, real quick?
I'm rocking my land speeders with Luke. I didn't have time. The Invader League thing. I've been playing a lot of Lando here locally.
Oh yeah.
I'm hot on Lando.
Oh yeah.
But right now, in Invader League, I didn't have enough time to decide, and so I just went with my land speeder Luke. I did make a small adjustment to I put I got rid of one of my sleepers and put in a fleet and a Ewok slinger.
Nice. Love
for
that.
another act.
Okay, yeah, that's
Love
solid.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
That's solid. Lando, so hot right now.
Ewok slingers, hot always.
Always hot.
Yes.
Short Trooper Squad upgrade, 70 points. Womp womp. I'm going to
Two
make
Ewok
Shore's work,
slingers
damn
squad.
it. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time. I'm David.
I'm Brian.
I'm Nathan.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll see you next time.
See ya.